All right, thank you everybody for coming in. Quickly, I just want to mention that I appreciate everybody. This is a beginner's class. I'm not the NLB of Python. I'll be doing a little bit of a guide work, and as we get more advanced, hopefully we'll be able to get some of you that are participating or some other instructors to then lead us to the advanced parts. But there's a lot we could do with the basics, right? And for today, we had as assigned from page 1 to page 19, right? Yeah. And since it's basic, I want to quickly talk a little bit about installation. The book has an appendix on how to install. You know, click, next, and yes, and it's installed. I want to make one point. If you're running Windows, make sure if you're a beginner, when you're installing, there'll be an option that says install to the path, P-A-T-H. Make sure you select that. That would allow you in Windows to access Python from any command line, from anywhere that you're working on, okay? If you don't install that path, you'll be writing Python, nothing happens, what's going on? And it's because of that. It needs to be put into the path, okay? That's the only little installation note I want to give you, right? I will be working like the book on a Mac computer, but all the steps that I'm doing on my Mac applies on a Windows box. It's the same thing. And that's a good thing about Python. It's cross-platform, okay? And yeah, any Windows IT admin that you know how to do to be able to get the path, you can do that. And keep an eye on the chat. Some people are commenting on that as well for the installation. All right. So what is Python? Python, and the book goes through this. I'm gonna just briefly go over it because I want to do the code. Python, what it does, it takes a text file that has the code that you put in it and runs it for you and shows you the result. It's as simple as that. Some other programming languages, you have to kind of compile and wait for that and do certain things. Python makes it really easy, right? You just tell it to go and it goes. The big benefit of Python is that there's a lot of libraries that we can use. What does that mean? That means that you don't have to code every single thing. You can take pieces of code that somebody else did and you can bring it into your program. Do other programming languages do that? Yes, but Python is well known for having a really deep sets of libraries that you can use. And as you saw on the examples, we're gonna use a couple of those, right? So let me share the screen here and let's get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. All right, can you see all my screen? Yes. Yeah. All right, awesome. All right. Let's see if I can move the zoom bar from there we go. Right. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to open the IDLE, right? And you might be wondering, what the heck is that? What can I type here? Hold on for a second. There we go. IDLE, right? And this is on page 3, right? Here you can run Python commands pretty much, line by line, really easily, and you can use it for testing. I'll be honest with you, I don't use the Python IDLE that comes with it. We'll use it for class, but that's not my main thing. I like to use my own, I say not mine, but use a code editor. Like I said before, Python is just a piece of a text document that you write your code and it runs. You can write it on Notepad. You can write it on, well, maybe not Word because it adds too much crap, but Notepad, Notepad++, Sublime, there's many others. You can use the one that comes with Python, which we will use, which we will access by hitting File, New File, and here it is. So let me put this on the left. Oh, on the left. Right, and this one, put it here. Right. So let me recap. Python comes with your IDLE, so you can actually run some code line by line to do some of your testing and run your code. And then it has a little editor that comes with it. Super useful. This is all you need. You can work with this. Or you can use your own. Like I said, I use one called Code Runner, which I think is pretty neat, right? And you're wondering, well, what makes one better than the other? It's preference. I like Code Runner because it has a nice little run button, and I could do certain things here on the argument section. And don't worry, we'll get to it. You're like, what are you talking about? We'll get to it. It's a matter of preference. But for now, this is what we're going to use. The good thing about the editor that comes with Python is that, for example, if you write the word import, you see how it changes color? Does that make sense? This tells me, or as a coder, that this is a reserved letter, and that it has a function or has a purpose in the programming language. All right. So it gives the color. It makes it really easy for me to kind of pick that out. Let's use here, for example, datetime, and then import. So notice how the import word has color. The other word, the name of the library, is not. Okay. The words in color have purpose within Python, and you cannot use them for other things. That word is called reserved words. Does that make sense? Look at the word for. And again, I'm not explaining what these do. The word if, right? They all have different colors. In my editor, the example I gave you from some of my own coding, you see some blues, you see some greens, you see different colors, and that will tell you, have an idea of what they do, and we'll go through those, okay? So recapping this first part, how to get to your text editor using the built-in ones. If you're in Mac, go to Python, open your IDLE. You open it, it will give you this window, and you can select File, New, and it will give you some text area to work with, okay? One thing that you need to do, and if you haven't done it, you need to do it for next class. You need to type all the code that's on page 4. You need to type it. And you're like, well, I could copy paste it from a website or something. I want you to copy paste it. Does anybody notice what happens if you write, for example, if you're on page 4, which is the part where it says understanding IDLE windows. When you write if, write underscore this minute. I can't type today. Minute, right? I'm gonna put here X for now. What happens if I hit enter here? Does anybody know what happens? If you don't know, it's fine. I'll tell you.
There'll be an indentation.
Yes. If I hit it, look where my cursor is, right? The cursor will go a tab or spaces to this part. It's called indentation, right? And if you're not, again, this is for, and some of you have to bear with me. This class is designed to be super basic. So we're talking about the ground level basics, right? You might be like, oh, I know what indentation is. Some folks might not know what that is. What that means is that whatever I write down here, right, it's gonna be part or dependent of what happens in the previous line. And let's say I write, I'm just writing the word print, so don't worry about it. And if I write print outside of here, now it's not part of this. All these are related and depend on what happens on this first line here, right? This is called a block, right? Some programming languages, to define blocks, they do it this way with some, like this way. Python does not. Python depends on how you type it. What's the word I'm looking for? Not syntax, but the indentation of the different parts, right? And this is good because it forces everybody's code to look kind of the same. So if I look at your code, it's going to be properly indented, because if it's not properly indented, it's not going to work. Okay, and I'll give you an example of that right now. I'm going to open the file that we were supposed to, have typed by hand. It's right here, and you'll see it. And notice that if I go here and see how I took the indent out, and I tried to run it by hitting F5. This function F5, right? No, hold on. Yeah, I want to save it, yes. It tells me expect a what? Can you see it from there? It expects an indented block. Does that make sense? All right, so how we write determines, if the thing runs or not. Okay, well, that's a segue that I went to. All right, so let's get into it. So the first thing is we typed our program, our example program, and if you didn't understand what this did, that's fine, we're gonna explain it. You typed it, it's all in, and let's discuss it. If you wanna run it, what you have to do is hit F5 run module F5, and it runs. I need to save it because I changed it a little bit. And that's one thing. Obviously, when you change something, you want to save it. Okay? And it tells me not an odd minute. Okay, so it ran. I hit F5, my program runs. Okay? And what is this program doing? I'm sorry I'm moving around so much, and because the Zoom bar is in the way. The first thing we want to learn, well, not the first, but one of the things I'm going to learn is we got a text document. We know that we can edit it with the editor that comes with Python. We need to save it before we run it, and we know for it to run, we hit F5. We got that, okay? I'm going to show you one thing about running, which I cannot be remiss. For you to run your programs, it doesn't have to be this way. Open the IDE editor and hitting F5, because that might take too long for you, right? So, documents. You can go, oh, where's it kept? File, save as, where is it saved? It's in Documents, Python class, okay. Documents, Python class. Now I'm gonna open here a terminal. All right, so hopefully you can see that text. This is your terminal. You can call Python and then call your program .py and hit enter, and it will run. Does that make sense? What did I do here? I call Python, the program in the computer, to execute it, and I executed my text file that I saved as the name .py, and this was done on page 5 of the book, right? So you can execute your programs through the IDLE window, which is fine, or you can go straight on a terminal and execute it from there, okay? By just calling the program, right? Since I'm here, I'm gonna show you. If you wanna check what Python version you have, you write Python and -- version, and it will tell you 3.8.3. That's one way of doing it. Notice that I'm calling Python 3, right? What is that? Some of you, especially on Windows, might just write Python and it works with no problem. The reason is that in my computer, Mac computers, they come by default with Python 2, right? So I had to install Python 3, and now they're both installed concurrently, right? So if I just hit Python, I'm talking to Python 2. If I call Python 3, then I'm working with Python 3. And there's big differences among them. Python 2 is pretty much gone away. It's not being supported anymore, and that's why we're talking about Python 3, right? Does that make sense? So you can run your programs also by going to the command line and just wherever the script is located, just call it from there, and it will run, okay? And that's one way of testing your programs if you're not using the IDLE. All right, so let's get into the program itself. Well, what does the program do? The first thing is we're gonna take information from what's called the native library of Python, okay? The standard library, and that's on page 9. And this is really important. You will use the standard library all the time. As you saw in the book, the standard library tells me how can I manage, for example, dates and times. You don't have to worry about coding it. It's done for you. You just need to use it, right? And the first step to using libraries is to say, okay, from the library called datetime, I'm gonna import datetime. And it's gonna be confusing. It's kind of named the same, but it's one of the quirks of the language. You can do that, and that's fine. That means that it will go into the library that's included, and it will import this module for you to use, okay? And here, what we're doing here, and we'll talk about how we use it in a second. The next step is we have what is called a variable, the word odds, right? And notice it's black in this color. So it means it's not a reserved word. It's not something that Python needs and you cannot use yourself. For example, I can never, ever write the word from here and use it as a variable. It won't let me because it's a reserved word, okay? And the color lets me know that. So what is a variable? A variable, think of it as a glass or a container, a box that you can put anything you want in it. You can put numbers, you can put letters, you can put, for example, a library inside a variable, like, not library, I should say, like functions inside a variable. Like you could put anything you want inside a variable and it will hold it for you, right? In this case, what we're putting is a list of numbers and a list of odd numbers, right? From 1 to 59 because it's a minute, okay? And the way you put this list is by using brackets. And literally, this is called a data structure in Python. The fact that you could put numbers sequentially, like in a list like this, like 1, 3, 5, 7, well, it's called a data structure, and this is a list. And this is not the only types of data structures that you can handle with Python. I'm gonna edit this, change the program a little bit, not change it, but just show you something. You could put, for example, I'm gonna hit for example 1, and I'm gonna put in instead of a list. Let me show you one real quick here. Actually, I'm not gonna type it. I'm just gonna show you from one of my own coding. I'm gonna just take this one here and show you. It's too big. Let me expand this a little bit. There we go. All right. What you see here is, and I make it like this so it's kind of really easy to see. What you see here, and it's called a dictionary, and we'll get to that also later. You see here that this first part here is like a key, semicolon, and instead of semicolon, you have different values, right? And this is not for confusion, just to show you that in Python, you can have lists, you can have dictionaries, you can put in variables, float numbers, integer numbers, you can put anything you want in them and use them, okay? So that's that. All right. So we had the variable odds, and now we have the variable right this minute. And now we're gonna use our functions, okay? So the way functions work, and this is the part that takes some time to get used to, I think it's the hardest part when we start understanding libraries, is what's called doing a method call, right? When you see here this today and the parentheses, what this does is it goes into the library datetime, right? Looks for today and gives you the minute. You see how that is read? From the library datetime, I wanna have today's date and I wanna extract the minute, okay? And this is like a dot notation. Every time you're working with libraries and you wanna access things inside the library, it's gonna be with a dot, right? One of the reasons I like Code Runner as my editor is that if, let's see if I'm gonna cheat here. That's a good example. See how my editor kind of tells, if I start with DA, it tells me, oh, there's a standard library called datetime. Do you want it? Well, yes, I do want it. And I select it. And then if I go datetime, right, dot, actually, I need to assign it, but there we go, date, there we go. So my editor kind of tells me, oh, look, maybe you're looking for a dictionary, maybe you're looking for whatever it is, right? So it will help you figure out what are the methods that you might need. And you're like, this is hard, I don't get it. Don't worry about it. And the book tells you, if you're not sure what datetime does, there's documentation online that tells you, okay, datetime, you can pull minutes, you can pull hours, you can pull seconds, you can pull it in a format that's human readable, you can pull it in all sorts of ways, okay? And then the last part that we're gonna discuss is the if and the else. This is called, I call it a control structure, okay? Right, so before I get into that, I got 5 more minutes, so I can do that. I'm gonna recap, so make sure we're understanding. From is the word that's reserved, that's why it's in color, that Python uses, and we're gonna use it to import datetime from the standard library. It comes with Python, you don't have to worry about it. It comes with it. And you can also use from to import your own libraries, which we will talk about that. And from datetime, you're gonna import, you can import one piece of it, or if you use the asterisk, you can import everything that's inside of it, okay, inside of that library. It's up to you. And when we want to do that, we'll discuss that in future classes. Then we learn what a variable is. Variable holds whatever you put in it. And then we discuss one file structure, which is a list. It's just what it says, a list. Things sequentially one after the other. They're defined by this bracket. And to be a list, every item has to be separated by a comma, right? If it's logic that if I do a variable with my name and I want to make an empty list, it will look like this. Does that make sense? It's a list, it's a structure, but it's empty. There's nothing in it. If I want to put stuff in it, like my name, then I can put my name, and it's a list of one single entry. If I want to put something else, like my last name, then I separate it by a comma. So that's a file data structure that we learned about, which is lists, and you use them extensively. Then we learned that we can have a variable and assigned, do a method call to the library to get something from that library. In this case, we're from datetime. We want today's date, but specifically the part that corresponds to a minute. And that result, which will be minute, it could be 1 minute, minute 2, minute 3, minute 10, whatever the minute number is, will go inside and be inside here right this minute. Okay. So let's say right now it's 2:54. If I run this, then right this minute would have a 4 in it, for example. And actually, you know what? I'm going to edit this and I'm going to make sure that that's the case. And I want to echo, just a minute. Yeah.
Could I jump in here for a second?
Yes,
Just
please.
a couple of things. First of all, someone pointed out you have a typo at the very beginning, the first line.
Yes, please call me out if I had typo. That helps.
And then I actually have a question, and maybe this is something for the Q&A later. It's just something that I don't mean to interrupt your flow, and if I might apologize, but variables, if you could explain a little bit about that, maybe even at during the Q&A, because that is something that I know I have questions about.
Oh, no, absolutely. And let's do that. I'm going to finish this and we'll talk right into variables again. That's perfect. All right. So the variable is going to receive the result of this method call. And the variable could receive the results of an addition, right? If I deleted this and put 1 plus 2, then 3 is going to be inside this right this minute. And again, I'm kind of simplifying this a little bit. I mean, again, it's a basic course, right? All right. So what happens next? Let's say we're in 12:55. So the 5, we will extract the 5 from our time is here, and it says if right this minute the value inside of which is a 5, is it in odds? Is it inside our list? Right? You see it there? Yes, it is. 5 is there. Then what happens? If it is there, I want to print, and that's the second the block here. Print this minute since a little odd, and I added print this minute to tell me what the minute is, to show me the contents inside that variable. Okay, I added this to the code. It's not on your workbook. Okay. What happens if it's 2:56, right? And the number 6, 12:56, and the 6 is not here. Well, is 6 in odds? No. Then it's gonna execute the code underneath the else, which is print not an odd minute. Okay, and I'm gonna also add that little piece of code here, the print, that will let us know what's the content of that variable. Print, as you see here, is also a reserved word. See, it has color. And literally what this does is puts something on the screen. That's all it does, okay? And again, it's also a call, right? It has a parenthesis. It's calls print to show you what it is that you need to show it, right? So let's run it one more time. It's gonna ask me to save it, of course. So we're gonna say yes. Oh wait, I hit the wrong keywords here, but I need to be here. There we go. Run, F5. I wanna save it, yes. All right, so it says, this minute seems a little odd. See the 57, and if you look on my computer system clock on the top right, it says 12:57. Do you notice that? It figured out that 57 is part of my list. It printed out the text saying this minute's a little odd. And then here, using the print functionality as well, I showed what was the result of our function call here, that number 57. Does that make sense? All right, I can't see the chat because I have full screen, but I hope that makes sense. There's a lot, and pretty much we're done with this part. There's a lot to unpack here, right? In 30 minutes and a few pages, we went from knowing nothing from Python to knowing that if you write this on any Word document, your code, you can tell Python to run it and it will run. We learned that it's a good convention to call your scripts, finish them or you save them as name of your script.py. That's kind of like the, not kinda, it is the extension that's associated with Python. So we learned that. We learned that we can leverage internal code that comes with Python by importing those libraries. And the way we do it is we call our library and we import it. We can import a little piece of it, or we can import the whole thing with an asterisk. We learned what a list or what a variable is, right? It's a container that receives things for you to work with. And we learned of one data structure, our first data structure, a list. That is pretty much sequential, not sequential, just items next to each other, because they might be non-sequential, right? Just items one next to each other. And the definition of a list in Python is the brackets, right? And the items have to be separated by commas. If you separate them by something else, it stops being a list, and then Python craps out. It says like, I don't know what you're doing. There's errors here. I'm confused, okay? Then we learned, after we import our library, we learned that we can do a call. If we know our library, we know what we need from that library, and we can specify to the detail with what we need. Then we can put that inside a variable for us to use. And the way to use it is by using a control structure. If this condition is true, it's successful, then this block of code right underneath it executes. If it's not true, if that condition is not met, then we execute this code. Here, up here, the conditions will change, right? It could be different conditions, and we'll give some examples as we move forward. But the last really powerful part that the Python gives us is this conditional called in. And notice the word in also has color, which means it's an internal Python thing. And it's so neat because instead of thinking, well, how do I figure out that minute, in this case, on the left, 57, is in this list? How do I go looking at items inside this list? How can I program that? Python does that for you, which is fantastic. You can just tell it, hey, is this thing in here? Is it? Perfect. Condition met, execute. Condition not met, execute something else. Or condition not met, don't execute anything. I mean, you can always this else delete it, and then nothing happens if the condition is not met. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, so that takes us to 1 o'clock sharp. So I'm gonna stop the recording now. Let me get back to my Zoom. How do I do this? For people that are watching that weren't in class, feel free to put your questions in the Discord server. If you look at my pinned tweet at Alexis Brignoni in Twitter, you'll find some of the information there. So you have questions, please leverage that. I'll keep an eye on that, and people are way more knowledgeable than me also keep an eye on that. So you can go and follow up on that. Right?
There are already like a couple of questions in the chat too.
Right. Well, I'm gonna stop the video and we'll start addressing those. Okay. So hopefully that's All right. Sorry, everybody. I'm still getting used to how to manage Zoom. So soon I'll be Heather level of Zoom expertise.
You're hilarious. Hey, where will the recording go? Are you going to put it in the Discord?
I'll put the links there. It'll be on my YouTube, but the
Cool.
links will be in Discord. Yes, so people can find them. Absolutely. What do I do here? Chat. There we go. All right. So let's do some of the chat questions. Or you know what? Oh yeah, I'll do them. Trying to figure out if it's better if Brooke, you tell me the questions, or if it's better if I try to read them and find them.
Make it a scavenger hunt.
You're still recording.
I'm still recording? Yeah, okay, Alex. I stopped my video, not the video of the recording. I'm a dummy. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm screen sharing. I'm not screen sharing.
Okay.
Stop recording.